Let me get my panel in here. Eli Stokols, MSNBC political analyst and White House reporter for the Wall Street Journal. Ben White, Politico chief economic correspondent, and former Congresswoman, Republican Nan Hayworth of New York. Look, so I'm just going to look at the timing here as I'm looking at the president's tweets this morning. At 6:15 and 6:25, he contradicts, basically cuts off at the knees, his own chief of staff. 2 hours later, at 8:37, he contradicts what the White House had to say about CHIP. Ben White, what's going on here?
Well, as you see, as so often in these cases, President Trump is making it more difficult for both his own White House and Congress to come to some kind of agreement to fund the government, avoid a shutdown, all over the map on CHIP, on the wall, on all of these subjects. So he's supposed to be the great negotiator, the guy who can make these deals. He's making it all much harder, likelihood of a government shutdown higher. If Kelly could keep him off Twitter, we might be able to keep the government open.
But we know that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And so, Nan, here's what I think the president is banking on, and maybe some Republicans. It's that the Democrats are going to be able to blame the Democrats.
Well, I think the president, I didn't read his tweets early this morning as actually contradicting John Kelly. I read them as his way of saying, yes, I do understand that, wall doesn't mean a physical barrier for all the thousands of miles of our southern border. So I didn't think that was contradictory. The president is very assertive about what he feels he has pledged to the American people, and he is a negotiator, and what he's doing is,
look, I'm going to respectfully disagree with you, because the point that John Kelly was making is that the president had evolved, right?
Yeah.
And that's what presidents do. The president said, I have not evolved. The wall is the wall. It has never changed or evolved.
But if you listen to what he said about the way he described the wall, clearly he's describing it. He's saying, look, I know it's not 100% physical barrier.
So what John Kelly said is not true. That's what he's saying.
No, I don't.
Because he's evolved.
I think what they're both saying. The president obviously has a way of asserting himself, but I think John Kelly speaks he cooperates clearly, I think, with the president. He's empowered by the president. And what he was saying was, look, when we get down to the specifics of policy, we know that there are certain specifics that are different, if you will, from political rhetoric, and we will accommodate those. But nonetheless, the issue remains that we've got to get these issues hammered out by tomorrow in terms of what's going to be included in a continuing resolution, what's not.
Yeah, and the uncertainty of that, complicated by this lack of an agreement, Eli, on Dreamers. And I want to just play what Speaker Paul Ryan had to say.
We've been very clear. We want to see a DACA solution, but a DACA solution has got to be a balanced solution. A DACA solution has to be a solution that also not just treats the symptom, which DACA is, but the root cause of the problem in the first place. I feel that it makes no sense for Democrats to try and bring us to a shutdown.
So, Eli, what is a balanced solution in the eyes of either Paul Ryan or President Trump?
Well, President Trump definitely wants some changes when it comes to chain migration, as well as funding for a border wall, whether that wall goes all the way across the border or not. There is room for negotiation there, and I think that's what John Kelly was trying to open up, is creating some space after they hope a CR gets done for them to come back and to continue to be talking about a larger budget deal. But the tweet just a few moments ago from the president about the CHIP program that could imperil just the CR from getting passed and lead us closer to a shutdown, that's the most pressing issue right now, because if there is a shutdown, you throw even more political rancor into the equation here and the partisanship, and that just sort of poisons the well, which isn't deep already, for possible negotiation and a possible deal. I would note some caution here. Those of us who cover this White House daily are always glued to our phones and the Trump tweet alerts, and oftentimes what you get with these early morning tweets, many of which are reactions to television, things that he sees on Fox and Friends. Right now, folks are watching for a corrective tweet from the president. Maybe Paul Ryan makes a phone call. Maybe staffers get to him and explain to him look, this tweet is problematic and this is going to lead us closer to a shutdown. So if we see a corrective tweet from the president in the next hour or two, then we'll have a pretty good indication that maybe he does support the CR in the House that the Republicans are set to bring to the floor at some point later this afternoon. If we don't see that, a reasonable conclusion to draw would be that the president might be just fine with a shutdown and trying to blame it on Democrats
and he's suggesting
Congress
that.
as a whole.
He's suggesting that. And Ben, I mean, the other thing we haven't even talked about is the Conservative Freedom Caucus and Mark Meadows about Dreamers and whether there's a solution. Let's play what he had to say.
I do believe that DACA recipients will be protected, provided we have those other three parameters that the president has laid out on border security and chain migration and visa lottery. There is a real growing consensus that we can get there.
Real consensus we could get there, as if this is the easiest thing in the world with the clock ticking and, 36 hours. Ben, does it get done?
I don't know. It could get done. I mean, we always run up to these deadlines and then they figure out a way forward at the end. And I still think, as Eli said, early morning tweet storms can get fixed. But I just want to address this idea that somehow Democrats would get blamed for a shutdown. I mean, you have a Republican in the White House. You have Republicans controlling the House and the Senate. When President Obama was in the White House and Republicans were in Congress, Republicans got blamed for a shutdown. Now they have everything. So obviously they're going to get the blame. I think the president thinks that somehow he could spin the shutdown to his advantage, that he's standing up for the wall, that he's standing up for changing family migration and all these other immigration issues. But I'm not sure he's on the right side of the politics on a lot of that. And there is absolutely no way that this president can avoid blame for a shutdown when there is complete Republican control of government. It's just not going to happen.
Nan, how does this play out?
I think I agree with you, Ben. I think the Republicans usually do get blamed. I don't think that's fair. I think
and so does that make members of the Freedom Caucus step back and say, look, we can't afford this.
Well,
this is a short-term deal. We need to get this done.
I've been in on those kinds of negotiations when I was a member of the House. And yes, I think the members of the Freedom Caucus will be able to come around to the understanding that we have big politics to deal with here. And in this kind of a year, I think there is a risk, especially since not only all three branches of government.
Plus, you're on sort of a winning streak here with
Republican control.
You're on a winning streak with the economy. You've got all these great announcements coming out from Apple and other companies. You've got people starting to like the tax cut bill more. They're going to see more money in their paychecks. Why do you want to mess that up with a shutdown?
Yeah, that's a great point. Except that, Eli, you also have people who are on the Republican side really frustrated. You can hear it with Lindsey Graham. Fourth time CR, come on, let's get our act together. The people like Rand Paul who have some real serious problems. What happens?
There are people on both sides who are frustrated with this budgeting process by CR that has been really the way that things have been done in Washington for about a decade now. A lot of people would like to see a budget deal, but Lindsey Graham has also expressed frustration with the president sort of being a political weather vane and going with whoever is in his ear last. That does, as Garrett explained and as Peter explained, really make things complicated for folks on the Hill to try and get something bigger than a CR done right now. And on Ben's point, I just think about the political ramifications of this. The White House is aware that Republicans are really already this year running into some very stiff political headwinds. The reason the president is going to Pennsylvania later today, as the president also pointed out on Twitter, undercutting White House explanations that he's going to give a speech about the economy. The president tweeted this morning he's going to support a House candidate in a special election there in a seat that was considered solid red, 95% white, rural Pennsylvania, a district that Trump won by 20-something points. The Republicans are worried about losing that. That's the political climate that we're living in as we consider a possible shutdown.
Eli, thank you. Ben and Nan are going to stick with